Hi. Alright, hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook, and today we are doing my August reading wrap up, talking about the books I read in August. I'm going to be honest, I had a bit of a rough reading month. I'm really kind of sad and disappointed about it. I was really excited for August. I was ready to kind of like slowly inch my way into fall, get out of summer, but you know, it's just how it goes sometimes. I did read one book that is a new absolute favorite of mine, but other than that, like I had a couple that I liked and then a few that I just like didn't really like, so we will talk about all of it. I read about 8 books total, so yeah, let's get into it. So the first book that I read in August was The Other Side by Kim Holden, and this book was actually recommended to me by one of you guys, and I totally understand why, because it was set in the 80s, and if you guys know me at all, anything set in the 80s, like, just give it to me. I wrote my own book set in the 80s. It is just my favorite time period, so I'm always here for those vibes. But this book was very different, very interesting. I went into it pretty much completely blind. I didn't know what it was about, but it was very heavy. It touched on some very deep, triggering subject matter. If you're sensitive to anything, I would definitely look into the trigger warnings for this book, but it basically follows this boy that is a senior in high school, and he has had a really rough life. He pretty much has had to move out of his mother's house, and he now lives in this apartment complex with the owner of the complex, and he works as the maintenance man. He lets him stay in a room, and he's just trying to finish high school, and you can tell that he has a really rough past. He's been through some really traumatic things. He has a lot of like self-hatred, and he's pretty much put an expiration date on his own life. He's decided that he's going to take his own life after he achieves a few things that he has on his list, the last thing being that he wants to graduate high school. So he's kind of in this countdown mode of just floating through life, and pretty much this new girl moves into the apartment, and he ends up meeting her, and she's kind of the first person that's made him kind of want to live a little bit. It's just kind of the story of him struggling with his mental health. You're kind of flashing between the present day and the past, seeing what he's been through and what's led him to this decision, and seeing him fight this decision. It was really good. Like, the beginning really hooked me, but it just got very heavy, and I really think it is like a very beautiful book, a very meaningful book. I think there's a lot of times in life where people have just felt really hopeless, or like they don't matter, or like you just, you know, aren't making an impact on anyone. I think we've all had those dark times at one point or another. So I think the author did a really good job with this book, but you could just tell like that was the main message. It's not really like, there is some romance in it, but it's not like a happy-go-lucky, fluffy romance story. Like, it's really a book about mental health. So I definitely liked it. It wasn't like my favorite thing ever, but if you like the 80s, if you'd like to read something that really makes you think, really kind of touches your heart, pulls out your heartstrings, maybe makes you cry a little bit, I would check this one out. Next, I read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This book has been on my list for so long, and you guys know I've been on a big thriller kick recently, so I figured it was about time that I try this one out. The concept was really interesting. It was basically about this girl that has been really struggling recently. She's lost her job, her relationship has ended, and she's pretty much on her own. She has a handful of dollars left in her bank. She really has nowhere to live, and she ends up coming across this ad for this very fancy apartment complex that is in Manhattan, overlooking Central Park. It's a complex that she actually knows of. It's pretty famous. It's featured in like her favorite book she's ever read. Like, she knows all about it, but basically they're looking for tenants to stay in this apartment because they have empty units and they just need people to stay there because they want all the rooms occupied. There are certain residents that are very wealthy that can't stay there throughout the year, so they just want people like filling those rooms basically. So she goes to tour the apartment, is completely amazed. It's the most beautiful place she's ever seen, and whenever she finds out the amount of money she's being offered to stay there, it really seems too good to be true, but it's being offered to her and she's in a place where she needs the money, so she decides to take it. And usually we know when we're reading a book, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. So yeah, as you can expect, weird things start to happen in this apartment. It's very secretive. She's given like a list of rules that you're really not supposed to talk to any residents unless you're first spoken to. You're supposed to like be very private, not post on social media about the place. There's just something very like weird. There's a lot of very elite people that live there, very wealthy people, kind of famous people, but she kind of quickly ends up like in some mess of things that she should not be involved in, and finds herself in a little bit too deep by the time she wants to get out. So yeah, very interesting. I felt like the beginning sucked me in, but the middle was really, really slow, and then the end was just not quite what I expected, and just, I don't know what I expected, but it just didn't like blow me away. Like, this was probably a 3-star thriller for me. I'm not saying you need to like run out and read it, but it was interesting. I don't know, I'm just kind of indifferent on it. I'm a little nervous to talk about the next book that I read because it's going to be controversial, my opinion on it. I just have to say, I think I'm a little bit done jumping on the bandwagon of these YA fantasy books that are just blowing up out of nowhere on TikTok and Instagram, because I just maybe think I'm not the target audience. I don't know. I read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I have seen this book everywhere. There was a week period where it was like the only thing anyone was posting about on Instagram, at least on my feed. I was just like, okay, this book has to be so good. Let me check it out. And I just thought it was so boring, guys. Like, so painfully boring that I struggled through it. The only reason I finished this book was because I was reading it on a flight, and I pretty much just read it in one sitting because I was on a flight and I had nothing else to do, and it was the book I had downloaded on my Kindle, so I'm like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. Pretty much it follows this girl that is in this world where they're at war. I guess it's kind of fantasy, but it also feels like it's like urban fantasy, real life. It's kind of like a weird mixture of the two, but the lore of this world is that basically like the god of the underworld and like whoever ruled the skies, the sun, whatever, hated each other and had been at war for like thousands of years. And this girl's brother went off to be in the war, to fight in the war when she was very young, and she hasn't seen him in many years. She was very close to him. She misses him a lot, and she thinks about him, whatever. But now she's working as a journalist at this like newspaper place, and she's writing stories, and she has this like work rival that she doesn't like that sits across from her, and so they kind of like have their thing going on during the day, but in the evening she's at home. She has this like typewriter that her grandmother gave her when she was a little girl that she would write letters on, and she started to notice like when she'd write letters they would disappear, and she thought that they were getting sent to her brother. So she's been writing these letters to her brother like all these years, like saying how much she misses him, talking about his life, talking about her life, yada yada. But lo and behold, her brother is not the person getting these letters. It is actually her work nemesis. And this is not me spoiling anything, like you find this out in quite literally like chapter 1. It's like the premise of the book. So her work nemesis has been getting these letters. She doesn't know that he's getting them, and then he basically starts replying. And so they kind of have this like pen pal thing going on. She doesn't know, he does know. It gets into like the war and stuff, and things progress. Like, that's all I feel like I can really say about it without spoiling it. It wasn't for me. It was very YA, which is fine. Like, I don't dislike a YA story, but I just didn't think there was much to it. I don't know. I just felt like it was like an enemies to like insta-love story. Like, there was no in between for me, and I didn't really understand the progression of it. I also just feel like, you guys might remember, I wasn't the biggest fan of Fourth Wing. I made a video where, same sort of thing, like I did a reading vlog, and I was talking about how I don't quite get the hype that it's getting, but to me, Fourth Wing was like a million times better than this book. Like, Fourth Wing, at least like the concept, it pulled me in, it was interesting, it was action-packed, like there was a lot going on, but my issue with Fourth Wing was that I just felt like the world building was not there. Like, I didn't understand the purpose of like this war they were fighting, why we cared, like why all these people were going to this place and training and all of that. And I kind of felt the same way with this book. Like, I didn't feel like, and maybe it will happen later in the series, but I just didn't really feel like I understood the point of this like grand war and why people are willing to fight in it and why it's so important. And it just, so much of the book was war. Like 70% it's like on the front lines of war, and I love fantasy, but when it gets into the war aspect, I just get like really, really bored. So I don't know, maybe it's a personal thing, but I just like, I didn't like this book. I didn't like it, and I definitely will not be reading the next one, but yeah, That's my personal opinion. I hope you guys loved it so much. So the next book that I read was Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. I read Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan a few months ago, and I really liked it, so I wanted to try out another book by her. This story is basically about this woman that works as a screenwriter. She writes movies, and she basically writes them for like the Hallmark Channel. They're just very happy-go-lucky movies that have a formula to them, but this time she's done something a little bit different. Instead of writing like a cutesy little happily ever after story, she based this story on her real life, because in her real life recently her husband left her. She was left with just her children, being a single mom now, and she just has been dealing with heartbreak. She doesn't really feel like she believes in love anymore, so she decided to write a very different type of story, and it really took off. People really liked it, and so now it's being made into a movie, and it's like the biggest deal she's ever had, and they're actually going to film it at her house because it's just the perfect setting for it, because she obviously wrote it to be about her house. So this man was casted to play the main character, which is obviously supposed to be her ex-husband. He's a super famous actor, and he is coming here to film the movie, so he is around her, and she sees him as obviously like, you know, enamored with him because he is like this super famous hot actor. But after the movie is done, he is not quite ready to leave. He wants to stay at her house for a little longer. He's really been going through it. He needs a mental break, in this house and like the place where they live, this small town, it just is the first like serenity he's had in a while. So he basically offers to pay like a very large sum of money if she'll let him stay in her guest house for like a week or two to just kind of like unwind. So yeah, as you can probably guess, this becomes like a romance story between the two of them. I really liked this book. I honestly flew through it in about 2 days. Like it was really cute. It was really like caught my attention. It was very like small town vibes, very family vibes, very kind of feel good vibes, but also like deals with complicated issues and life and people's, you know, different goals and dreams and whatever. It was very cute. I liked it, honestly. I would say check it out. So next up, I read a book that has been on my TBR for so long, and I finally decided to pick it up. It was Lilac by B.B. Reed, and honestly, this book is such a roller coaster that I don't even know how to give you my opinion on it. It just was so all over the place for me, the way that I felt about it. Pretty much, it follows this rock band that is like super, super famous. One of their members, their guitar player, actually ends up overdosing. At the beginning of the story, he has passed away, but the band is supposed to go on tour like really quickly, so they pretty much need to find a replacement for this guitar player. And there's this girl named Braxton that has been really like up and coming, playing guitar, and the label basically decides to, like, they're looking for options, and the guys end up hearing her guitar and she's like the best option, and because her name is Braxton, they think that she is a guy, and they invite her to come in and basically interview for the role, offer her the role, and when she shows up, she's obviously a woman, and that is not what they expected. And this band is just very complicated. It has 3 other members, and they were best friends when they started this band, but just a lot has happened now. There's been a lot between them. They all kind of have their own individual issues, but they're at a point now where they like are barely friendly with each other. So it's just like she's walking into a hot mess, and right away, like the main guy in the band, just like her and him do not click. Like they have very kind of like strong personalities, very like competing personalities. So yeah, they don't want her in the band, but she is the best option and really their only option at this point. So they agree to do it. She starts touring with them, and it is just a hot mess. Every one of these guys just kind of gives her shit, but also very much has a thing for her in very different ways. Again, they all kind of have their own personal issues going on. She has her own personal issues, but this ends up becoming a why choose story, which I have never, like, I kind of realized it once I started reading this, that I have never read a true why choose. And I have to say it was a little overwhelming. The first like 30% of this book, okay, I will say, when the book very first started out, I was like, I'm not quite sure how I feel about this, and then I was hooked. Like the first 10 to 30%, maybe 40%, I was like all about it. I was reading it on my Kindle. I immediately ordered the paperback. I was like, this book is gonna be one of my favorites of the year. I'm so obsessed, I'm so hooked. The tension is so good. And then like once things started happening between all of them, I just think it got a little lost in the sauce. Like there was just a lot going on for me, and it just felt like it was a lot of like fluff, and it got very repetitive and was really just all over the place. I will say some of the spice in this book, brain chemistry altering. majorly. There's only a handful of scenes really, which is surprising because this is such a thick book. Like I thought once the spice started it was gonna be like all that, but it's really not. Like there's only a handful of scenes and there's just a lot of like repetitiveness with everything else going on. So overall, like I would recommend this, but I just want to say it's not like, in my opinion, I don't know, like spice wise, tension wise, if you like a why choose, sure, but like overall the plot to me was just kind of like a little hard to follow and all over the place, and yeah, I just didn't know how to feel, but it was good. Check it out if you like all the things I talked about. Okay, next, I finally took the plunge and decided to read Throttled by Lauren Asher. Listen guys, one of my best friends is super into F1, like absolutely obsessed with it, and she has been trying to get me into it for so long now, like I mean over a year at this point, and because she's so obsessed with it, she constantly talks about it. I found myself like absorbing all of this information, and then one day I was like, why do I know all this stuff? Like she just talks about it all the time, and now I'm at a point where like I haven't watched Drive to Survive yet, but I like follow all the drivers, I know all the drivers, I know all these random facts about them that I don't know how I know them, but I just, guys, I'm obsessed with so many things. Like, and when I get obsessed, I get obsessed. I'm not a person to do anything half-assed, so I just like, I don't know if I have the capacity to be fully obsessed with another thing. So that's the only reason why I haven't fully dove into F1, but what I know of it, I really, really like. So I've been wanting to read this book, and I just wasn't sure because you guys might know my history with Lauren Asher. I don't think she's for me. I've given her a try and I don't know. So I wanted to try this book, and I think it just confirmed that like her writing is not for me. I want to say she is so knowledgeable about F1. The reason I continued to read this book is because like all the F1 stuff was so great and so well done, and there was just so much about it. Like I love when a sports romance actually shows the sport and you actually are in it and involved in it, and like you see races and you see them like whatever at the pit stops, like on the grid, all the things. Don't come for me, I don't know all the terms, but like I felt very much like I was like learning more about F1 and like the vibes, like it was all there. Like I thought that aspect of the story was so good, and that's why I kept reading it. But it's just like everything else is just not like, it just wasn't, it's hard for me. The dialogue, just like the flow of the story, it just, something about the style of her writing I can't get into. And I know like it's just a personal thing. She is so popular and like good for her. People love her, so it's just me. I want to continue this series because I'm interested in like the other stories, but I just physically, like, I don't know if I can do it. This one really interested me because it's basically about this girl whose brother is an F1 driver, and he has a lot of history with this other F1 driver who's like kind of the bad boy on the grid, and they have this like rivalry because he basically caused him to crash and made him like lose this title at this massive race. But now the two of them are on the same team together. So this girl has just graduated from college and she's actually a YouTuber, which is really cute and fun. And her brother wants her to basically travel with him. He's like, come be with me, like just travel around, like spend a year with me doing this. You can vlog it, like grow your YouTube channel. So that's what she does, and that's where she ends up meeting her brother's now teammate. They're on the same team together, even though they're rivals. They've signed contracts and are on the same team, so now they have to kind of like work together, but they still kind of hate each other. And she ends up obviously crossing paths with the bad boy that is enemies with the brother, and that is like what the story is about, their whole romance. I wanted to love it, but I just I didn't, unfortunately, but that's just how it goes. Okay, I feel like I've been negative for like 10 minutes, so now I'm here to be positive because this next book is just about my favorite rom-com that I've ever read. And you guys know that is like a big statement because I am very picky about my rom-coms. Like I have a couple that I really like, but for the most part, like it's hard for me to really love a rom-com, for it to be like a favorite of mine. But this freaking book, you guys, I have a reading vlog coming where I'm reading a couple of rom-coms in a row, so you're gonna see like more of my thoughts about this book. But Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I have seen this book everywhere and it looked cute to me, but like, oh my god, I'm so mad at myself that I didn't read it sooner. It had been on my high priority list for months and months and months. It had been sitting on my shelf, finally picked it up, and it was just everything I could have wanted and more. It's basically about this girl that has grown up with a mom who is a screenwriter. She wrote rom-coms, and they just bonded over their love of romance movies. They would always sit and watch them together, like all of the classics, and she just has like this vision of love in her head of like wanting to have her meet cute and just like her grand moment, and like she's just, her mom very much instilled that in her to like not settle for anything less and to like make your life a movie and be the main character. So she grew up living next door to this boy named Wes, and they were always kind of just like not friends. Like they very much bickered with each other. He always kind of picked on her. They always messed with each other, and now they are in high school, and they dislike each other more than ever. They basically are always fighting over the same parking spot that is in front of both of their houses, and she just kind of like can't stand him. But now she is a senior in high school, they both are, and this boy that used to also live on their street, that she always was in love with growing up, he moved away, but now he has moved back, and she is like as in love with him as ever. She's determined. She feels like this is her second chance romance, meet cute moment. She wants to be with him. She wants him to take her to prom, and she's determined to make it happen, but she doesn't really have a way to like be around him. Like she's trying to get into his inner circle, but someone that is in her inner circle is the next door neighbor named Wes. So she basically makes a deal with him that if he kind of gets her time with him, that he can have their parking spot that they've been fighting over. So it turns into a fake dating story essentially, because he has to like fake date her to make this other guy want her, and it is just so cute. It is so freaking cute. Every single chapter in this book starts with a quote from a rom-com movie, and if you love movies, like it is a rom-com about rom-coms. If you love movies, like there are so many references, there are so many like talks of like soundtracks in movies, like just through and through. It felt like I was watching just like an early 2000s rom-com movie. Like it just made my heart explode. It was so freaking cute. The dialogue in this story, the banter between the two characters, like I was kicking my feet and giggling. Like I had such a crush. I felt like I was like in junior high again. Butterflies and Rainbows. I loved this book, and I can't stop thinking about it. So I'm gonna need you guys to all run out and read it because I am so obsessed. I'm gonna read everything else that Lynn Painter has ever written. And the last book I am still currently reading, I'm about halfway through it. It is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. It is also going to be a part of that rom-com reading vlog that I was talking about. So if you want my final thoughts on it, make sure you watch that in a week or two, whenever that comes out. But you guys might know of the book When in Rome by Sarah Adams. That is actually the first book in this sort of series or world. In that book, it is about a famous singer that just needs to take a mental break. So she's really obsessed with the movie Roman Holiday. She loves Audrey Hepburn, so she wants to run away to Rome, but she can't actually go to the real Rome. So she ends up driving to this small town in Kentucky called Rome. So her car ends up breaking down there, and that's where she ends up meeting this very grumpy pie shop owner, baker, that ends up taking her in, helping her out, whatever. So that is their love story. And this book is about the grumpy pie shop owner's little sister who owns a flower shop and the famous singer's bodyguard. So it's cute so far. It's like a fake dating story, but it's like a practice dating story. Like they're not fake dating for the public, but they're fake dating because the sister is super introverted, and she's decided after seeing her brother fall in love that like she's ready to fall in love. She wants to settle down, but she's just has a lot of anxiety. She's really socially awkward. Everyone just thinks of her as like this cute, innocent little angel, and she's like tired of being seen that way, but she has such issues going on dates. So the bodyguard is in town because the brother and the singer are about to get married, and he's bored. He doesn't have a lot to do because it's a very small town. There's not a lot of people that he needs to protect the singer from. So the singer ends up asking him to help the sister out with this and practice date her. And he very much has like issues with relationships. His parents got divorced, had a really messy divorce, so he doesn't believe in marriage or love and is intent on never being in a relationship. So they kind of are the perfect fit for each other because she very much wants someone that wants to settle down, and he's like not about that at all. So it's like, it'll be totally fine. Like no feelings will be had. Like this is gonna be a very just like strict business only kind of thing. Of course, like we'll see where that goes. But it's cute so far. I would say that so far I liked the first book better. Sarah Adams just writes like very fluffy, happy rom-coms that usually are very low spice, usually no spice, honestly, and are just kind of feel-good books, which I mean I'm into. Every once in a while I just want to like feel good. I like it so far. I'm not like obsessed with it yet, so definitely, like I said, watch my vlog if you want my full thoughts. But yeah guys, those are the books that I read in August. I said at the beginning it was a bit of a rough month, and I did not lie, as you could probably tell. But honestly, Better Than the Movies like made up for the entire month. Like, I had a couple of good ones in there, but Better Than the Movies was just like so mind-blowingly good that like the rest of it, like honestly when I was looking at my list, I was like, oh yeah, I've kind of forgot that I read all those books that I didn't really love that much. But yeah guys, if you read any of these books, I would love to hear all your thoughts down below. If you read any other books in August that you loved, obviously tell me that as well. But yeah guys, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.